Hello guys and gals, and welcome to a special episode of Can Diablo 4 Replace Diablo 2? Now, the answer to this question lies in a large number of options and available things that go on with why Diablo 2 has maintained its status as the king of the ARPG world for so very long, and to then apply that logic to Diablo 4 to see if Diablo 4 could potentially usurp the king, right? Well, the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to go over kind of like the general reasons why Diablo 2 has maintained its status for so long. Now, the first in a rather long list of reasons is its insane replayability. Diablo 2 Resurrected has a replayability that has surpassed pretty much every game I've ever played. For 22 years, or rather 23 years now, isn't it? The game has maintained this insane replayability that at any time you could pick it up and you could play it again and just to have fun with it. And you could do so in a myriad of ways. But the thing is that no other game that I've ever played, for the most part, has had this level of insane replayability, which means that the community has stuck around for 23 years. And finally, for Diablo 2 Resurrected to launch, and only for it to see a resurgence in its popularity again. Now, this is the kind of thing that can't be seen right away. Unfortunately, Diablo 4, well, no matter what or how good the game is, we won't know the level of replayability until it has aged a little bit like a fine wine. And that's kind of what's going to go on here. Either Diablo 4 will get worse with age, as most games do, or like a fine wine, it will age gracefully like Diablo 2 did. Diablo 2 has its flaws, yes, but most undoubtedly Diablo 2 is one of the most perfect ARPGs that's ever come out. And whether you want to say that it was designed perfect deliberately, or if it was an accidental mistake that it ended up so amazing, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is that it is. And the question is can Diablo 4 match that level of insane replayability? And the answer to that question is a very simple, we don't know. Because Diablo 4 has to come out and be out for quite some time so that we can see how the community engages with the game and whether or not they stick around. Another very good reason why Diablo 2 has stuck around for so long is because of the lore of the game. The very good storytelling that is involved in Diablo 1 and in Diablo 2 subsequently has made for a very interesting story. Angels and demons, life and death, and heroes that sit on the border in between, and all of which comes up with a very amazing story which sucks you right in. Diablo 3, I felt like, failed in the story department. Cain was killed by a giant butterfly, and Diablo got a sex change. Not really sure what the hell was going on in that game, other than I got the overwhelming feeling that the people who made Diablo 3 did not like the Diablo 3 franchise. And I think that was actually proven when several of the Diablo 3 developers got into basically a verbal fight with the original Diablo 2 developers. So yeah. Number 3 on the list is the skill tree. Now, the skill tree is something that, according to the developers, is a function that Diablo 4 is attempting to copy. They have made it evidently clear that Diablo 4 is going to be copying certain things from Diablo of the past. And they've made it very clear that the skill tree in Diablo 2 is something that they are trying to mimic and copy in such a way in Diablo 4, because they understand that the skill tree is part of what makes the characters in Diablo 2 so amazing and so insanely replayable. So it is a good sign for Diablo 4 that obviously we have a skill tree which is at least approaching some of the complexity, if not maybe even a little bit more complex than Diablo 2. However, I want to branch this off into number 8, which I know this is a little bit early, but I feel like this is important because this comes to the hidden depth of complexity. So a lot of people don't actually know this about Diablo 2 because they don't really consider this. But the thing about Diablo 2 is that the complexity of the game is deceptively hidden. And it's not necessarily, I think, that people hate complexity, it's that they fear the complexity that they see. So when you first get into Diablo 2, one of the most amazing things is that the game seems relatively simple. And for the most part, it will lure you into this false sense of simplicity, and you will complete normal difficulty, maybe even nightmare difficulty, before you really start to see the hidden depth of the complexity that is inside of Diablo 2. And this hidden depth of complexity is, quite honestly, I think one of the main things that, number one, draws people in, and number two, allows people to learn about the game in a way that is much more comfortable than just simply smacking them in the face with a giant encyclopedia of a book. Like, for instance, let's say you got to your first day on the job, and, on your first day on the job, they gave you some moderate training, and they let you experience some of it for yourself. Or, on your first day on the job, they threw a giant book at you that was thicker than your own head and was like, hey, you need to read this before we even let you in the building. And, it's a big difference between being able to experience the game and slowly and surely uncovering the hidden depths of complexity of the game and being hit in the face with the complexity of the game right from the start. And I believe that this is one of the, if not most important reasons why Diablo 2 has succeeded and continued to succeed for so long. And this is due, in fact, to the reason where even veteran players tend to still learn new things on a regular basis. And I think that's absolutely amazing, is that if you can play a game for 23 years and then still learn something new 23 years later about this game that you absolutely love, that is definitely a positive in its favor. However, has Diablo 4 captured this? Have they captured the depth of the skill tree, in my third reason why Diablo 2 has succeeded so well? And have they captured the hidden depth of complexity? Now, one thing about Diablo 4 that we know is that the Paragon board, which is a very complex thing, does not come into play until much later in the game, around level 50, when you've already kind of completed everything. So this is a good sign that the hidden depth of complexity is present in Diablo 4, and means that Diablo 4 will potentially allow the player to learn at their own pace. However, once you get hit to level 50, it looks like they're going to smack you in the face with that phone book anyway. So it seems like they've done kind of like a combination of the two, right? They've hidden it at the beginning, but then when you get to level 50, they're like, here's your book. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out. Hopefully the players will be invested enough by the time they hit level 50 to want to spend the time to learn the Paragon board and not be so overwhelmed at that point. But there's also the possibility that it could still be overwhelming even at level 50. So we shall see. Another very big reason why Diablo 2 was very successful, my number 4 reason, is itemization and rune words. So itemization and rune words are two very good reasons why Diablo 2 succeeded the way that it has. I believe, honestly, in my opinion, that Diablo 2 has the best itemization in pretty much any game I've ever played, and that's saying a lot. A lot of the times you could take an item and you could build an entire character around an item in Diablo 2. I mean, just to give you a example, let's say, for instance, I wanted to make a hurricane druid that used the Windhammer Ogre Maul and spam tornadoes in werewolf form. The Windhammer Ogre Maul would then become a central part of my build, and I could simply make a character entirely around the Windhammer Ogre Maul. And I have, and it has succeeded. And there are tons of various items throughout the game that you can build entire characters around, like Dream Helmet and Dream Shield, Dragon Armor and Hand of Justice weapon, and so forth and so on. And as you go through Diablo 2's, giant catalog of items, you will often find rune words, unique items, and even sets that you can build entire characters around, which is honestly amazing. And the answer to the question lies also in Diablo 4's itemization. does Diablo 4 have an itemization that is going to rival, if not maybe even be a little bit better than Diablo 2's? Well, one thing that we know for certain is that Diablo 4's itemization is going to include unique items from Diablo 2. They have taken it upon themselves to take items from the past, like the Windforce Bow, Mage Fist, Frostburns, and things like that, and even Harlequin Crest Shaco from Diablo 2, and add them into Diablo 4 as incredibly rare, unique items. And this is very interesting, especially when you consider that itemization is not just about the quality of the item or how good the item works with the character. It is also about how rare the item is. And one of the things that they have stated is that the unique items that they're adding into Diablo 4 will be quite rare, very similar to the way that they were quite rare in Diablo 2. And I feel like this is also important when it comes to itemization, because Diablo 3 showed us very clearly that loot pinata is not what we want. We don't want a game that drops us every single item in the world so very quickly that literally we have an entire character geared up in a matter of hours. We want Diablo 2, where we have to hunt and search for items. And in the words of myself, a rare item should be rare. If you have rare, ridiculously hard to find items that are dropping like candy everywhere, you've ruined the aspect of the game that keeps people coming back time and time again, which is hunting for those elusive rare items. And of course, if you give them the elusive rare item relatively quickly, then they're going to lose interest relatively quickly. And so both of these things, the itemization, the rune words, and all of it come into play, as well as the rarity of the items. Now, Diablo 4 will not have rune words, and that is rather unfortunate. Although I absolutely do adore rune words, and I think it is a very cool way to encourage the hunting of items, they do have something that is going to be very similar to rune words in a way. So inside the game, there is going to be legendary aspects, and the legendary aspects can be added to rare items. The rare items essentially become the bases for these specific rune words, right? So when we have Diablo 4's system, Diablo 4 is kind of like, in a way, almost simulating the same thing. You're hunting down the aspect, which essentially would represent the rune word. And you're hunting down the rare item, which is essentially the base. And you're taking the aspect and you're putting it into the rare item, which then becomes the rune word itself, right? So in a way, although they don't necessarily have rune words exactly, they do have something similar, which will engage players in much the same way of hunting bases and searching for the specific rune words to put in those bases. And from what I understand, the aspects themselves also roll. So there will also be, just like in Diablo 2, a whole aspect where you are constantly re-rolling these particular items to get the best version. Number 5 on my list is Atmosphere. Now, Atmosphere is, for some reason, in some games, something that people don't consider. And I've never really understood this, because in various games, they will just completely ignore aspect as a main component of the game. And to be honest with you, atmosphere is almost everything. A bad atmosphere in a game can ruin a game almost completely. Even if the game itself was absolutely amazing, if the atmosphere of the game was terrible, then so too the game would be terrible. And I've seen games like this where the graphics, the actual art style that they chose, the lighting and the effects are just quite painful. And also, there is another aspect to it, which is not just does the artwork look good, it's does the artwork match the style that has been established within the genre. So Diablo 1 was the one that established the art style, a very dark and foreboding and scary atmosphere that is filled with the death cries of the weak and demons that are hunting and murdering humans on a regular basis. And Diablo 1's atmosphere is dark and gritty, and it's absolutely amazing, combined with beautiful musical scores that even to this day, when you play Diablo 1, you will still be amazed at how good the music and the atmosphere is in Diablo 1, despite the bad graphics. And And that is one thing that they have told us they have taken from Diablo 1. So Diablo 1 is definitely a little bit better in terms of atmosphere and music than Diablo 2. Although I really do enjoy Diablo 2's atmosphere and music, I do think Diablo 1 beats it ever so slightly in the atmosphere. And so it's not surprising that when they chose which game to pull the atmosphere from, instead of choosing Diablo 2, they chose Diablo 1, which is a good choice. So Diablo 4 definitely is going to have an atmosphere which is conducive to a Diablo style game, as opposed to Diablo 3, which definitely did not. Number 6 on my list is single player longevity. So this is something that unfortunately Diablo 4 does not have, and I feel like we need to talk about this. So Diablo 2 has this amazing thing that a lot of people don't even understand very well because it doesn't have an internet presence. But Diablo 2, to this day, is still installed and played in the single player form on millions of computers all over the world. Not only in the form of Diablo 2, but also in the form of other games that were modded to make Diablo 2 into another game. And that brings me to number 7, which is mod support. So Diablo 2 had very good mod support. Diablo 2 Resurrected, not as much, although there is a mod community that has been forming for Diablo 2 Resurrected. But Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction had a very healthy single player and a very healthy mod community, which enabled Diablo 2 to be more than what it was. We're talking about things like PD2 and Median XL and other such games. And even Diablo 1 had, the Beelzebub mod, right? So, this is something, unfortunately, that Diablo 4 is not going to have. And you might be asking, well, how do I know it's not going to have single-player longevity? And how do I know it's not going to have mod support? And the answer to both of those questions is that Diablo 4 is an online-only game. They've pretty much stated that Diablo 4 is going to be an MMO-style game. And although it might not be exactly like World of Warcraft or, Final Fantasy XIV, they have made it very much so in the vein of an MMO. And because they have made it in the vein of an MMO, it is only going to be an online game. So that means that, unfortunately, for number 6 and number 7, these are essentially not possible with Diablo 4. And this leaves us with, what is the answer? Can Diablo 4 replace Diablo 2? Or, can Diablo 4 actually reign supreme over it? I think that time has to tell. The answer to the question, unfortunately, that I would have to give right now is no. Due to the fact that Diablo 4 does not have single player, due to the fact that Diablo 4 does not have really mod support, because most online games tend to have rather limited mod support at best, we may be looking at in the future something like like DPS parsers or things that you would see within a like an MMO community like World of Warcraft, but you're not going to see like amazing, ridiculous mods like PD2 or Median XL, because those things are not going to be possible with a game that is strictly online only. Hidden depth of complexity, my number 8. I do feel like Diablo 4 does fulfill some of that hidden depth of complexity, but at the same time, they also, once you hit level 50 and you start to get in toward the end game of the game itself, they smack you in the face with a very large degree of complexity, and I'm not sure if that is going to turn players away or encourage them to dig in deeper. And in fact, it may very well be both, but the question is it going to be primarily those that leave or primarily those that stay? Number 5, which is the atmosphere, I feel like Diablo 4 has very accurately captured the atmosphere. And for this reason, I'd like to at least bring up a little bit of footage, since I am talking about Diablo 4, of Diablo 4, so that you guys can see some of the footage in the game and the kind of gritty atmosphere that we'll be looking at. So this is some of this gritty atmosphere. And as you can see, it is dark. It is, foreboding, and it has the pacing of, like a Diablo 2 game. And in Diablo 3, you were surrounded by monsters on a regular basis. It was like there was never a limit to the number of monsters that would be around you all the time. But in Diablo 4, it seems to be more of a slower paced story. They're trying to tell a story. They're not so much trying to just like put you in a loot pinata game. Then we also have the skill tree. So I am actually pretty excited about the skill tree. And if you haven't seen my videos, I've got 2 different videos, one that explains the skill tree and how it works, and one that goes over all the characters and talks about all the different builds and things that you could possibly have. Now, I do feel like that Diablo 4 covers the skill tree pretty well. Now, only time will tell if the skill tree of Diablo 4 is going to live up to the expectations of Diablo 2, but it definitely seems like they are on the right track. Itemization and rune words, I do feel like Diablo 4 has stepped in the right direction away from the way that Diablo 3 has done things. However, they're still, I think, mired in Diablo 3. In fact, a lot of the way that the system works is still pulled from Diablo 3, despite the fact that it is very obvious that they're trying to separate themselves from the way that Diablo 3 worked. And I'm not sure if that's going to backfire on them or not, especially considering there is almost a knee-jerk reaction within the community against the way that Diablo 3 functions. I feel like they would have been better off almost inventing a new system as opposed to trying to work off of the dregs left over by Diablo 3 after they gutted it. Last on the list is the lore. So, from what we've been getting leaked and little various pieces of information, it definitely seems like the lore of Diablo 4 is going to be superior to Diablo 3 in just about every way. So far, even just with the little tidbits of information that they've leaked to us, it definitely seems a lot more interesting in general. However, time will tell if it is going to be better than Diablo 2. Now, the thing that really kind of gets me here is one particular question. And that is, will Diablo 4 replace Diablo 2? And I think in the short term, and this is important to remember this, in the short term, the answer is yes. Every time a brand new game comes out, every time an exciting title comes out, it's going to replace what you're playing for that time period. Think of Elden Ring or, even Hogwarts Legacy when it comes out soon. People are going to be very excited when the game comes out. They are going to play it and they're going to have fun with it. But only time will tell us whether Diablo 4 will be either A, a game that we pick up and put down within a short period of time, or B, a game that we play for decades to come. And that's really, I think, what a lot of people are going to have to remember is that, yes, everyone is going to pick up Diablo 4 and we're all going to play it and we're all going to have fun with it. But are we going to continue to play it and are we going to continue to have fun with it past, a year or 2 years after the game is released? And once we figure out whether or not Diablo 4 has that level of insane replayability and complexity that is going to warrant, years, if not even decades of dedication and playthrough, then we'll have our final answer. But as it is right now, from what I see of Diablo 4, I don't see a game that's going to replace Diablo 2 entirely. What I see is a game that's going to be fun, a game that is going to capture my attention for a year, maybe 2 years, but there's no guarantee that this game will capture my attention indefinitely. I always hope for those games, though. Like, let me not be negative completely. I think every time someone boots up a game, we all always hope deep down that that game will be the next game that we play as an evergreen title. And that's really what it comes down to, right? What it comes down to is evergreen games. Evergreen games are games that you play and you continue to play for years and years afterward. I could give you a list of evergreen titles right now, just as an example. Counter-Strike is an evergreen title. No matter how many times you put down Counter-Strike, you will probably always pick it back up again. World of Tanks is an evergreen title. You continue to play World of Tanks for a long period of time. League of Legends, World of Warcraft. I mean, this is just a few of the games that are considered to be evergreen titles that you will put down for something else. You know, like I can't count how many times I had put down Counter-Strike, I had put down World of Tanks, I had put down these games. And of course, Diablo 2 has to be added into this list, and now Diablo 2 Resurrected. These are evergreen titles that you will continue to pick up for essentially for eternity. And you may put down these titles for years at a time. And I think this is where things get very interesting, is that just because an evergreen game is put down doesn't mean you won't pick it back up again at some point. Some people have put down Diablo 2 for 20 years and picked it back up again as if it was brand new. Some people put it down for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and it doesn't really matter because you always end up picking these games up again at some point. And I try to tell people this when it comes to video gaming, especially when they see me playing another game. Like, say for instance, one day, you see me on the stream and I'm playing Harry Potter, Hogwarts, right? So I'm playing the new Hogwarts game, right? Well, the chances are I'm probably only going to play that till I beat it. That's it. And then once I beat Hogwarts, you know what happens? You know what happens as soon as I beat the game? I come right back to do D2R. Literally, as soon as I beat that game, I'm going to go right back to the evergreen title that is in my foremost mind. And I know all you guys out there, all you guys and gals out there have an evergreen title. You know exactly what I'm talking about. On your desktop or on your shortcut bar or somewhere is a shortcut to a game that no matter how many times you quit it, no matter how many times you say you're not going to play it anymore, you pick it back up again. In fact, you know what? I want to challenge all of you guys out there to prove my point. What is the game that no matter how many times you put it down, you always end up coming back to it? Because that is your evergreen title. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I'm just talking about Diablo 2 versus Diablo 4 for 28 minutes. And as always, keep watching.